Welcome back, freeze dryers. This time of year is great for freeze-dried corn, whether it's kernel corn, sweet corn, whatever it is. It's fresh, it's in season, and it's inexpensive right now. So today we're gonna make a good freeze drying recipe, corn chowder, and we're gonna freeze dry all of these individual ingredients. You can freeze dry them individually, put them together, and then make this delicious corn chowder. And our first ingredient we're gonna freeze dry is going to be the most obvious. We're gonna do kernels of corn. Corn freeze dries really well, and kernels of corn like this make a sweet snack just by themselves, actually, just the kernels. They're very crunchy. Before you store away that freeze-dried corn, make sure you give it a try just in raw freeze-dried state. Our next ingredient, we're gonna do some potatoes, and because the potatoes need to be blanched, you probably wanna get a pot of water boiling first, and then we can cut those up. And then after that, I'm gonna do some fresh rosemary. We're just gonna throw that right onto the tray. We're using pre-cut parchment on all of our trays today so we don't get any sticky mess while freeze drying. And then with this fresh rosemary, we're going to do some sliced and diced onions. And if you're not already aware of this, you need to be very strategic on what you freeze dry your onions with, garlic too, because it will stink up your whole freeze dryer and possibly contaminate your other food you're freeze drying with. So beware of that. Next we'll do some carrots. I leave my skins on. I always do organic carrots. I usually freeze dry carrots in medallions, but you can do them finely chopped as well. Tray 3, we're gonna do some celery. Our celery is gonna have to share a tray with our last big ingredient, some potatoes, and our water's boiling now, so we're gonna dice those up and then blanch them for 2 to 3 minutes. And before I cut my potatoes up, this recipe calls for 1.5 pounds. So what I'm gonna do is only freeze dry 1.5 pounds of potatoes and see what that gets us as a yield for our finished product freeze dried. Skins on and cubed, that's how I'm doing my taters today. You do you can do them any way you want. Just keep in mind the bigger your cut items are, the longer they're gonna take to freeze dry and potentially rehydrate. You're essentially just giving these a quick warm bath, 2 to 3 minutes. Some people do even less than that. Really what this does, it helps preserve them, it helps them from turning brown real quick, and when you rehydrate them, they'll just rehydrate a lot better and they'll look a lot better. You're not trying to cook them, you're not trying to boil them until they're done. They should still be firm. We're not making mashed potatoes here. We will add this to our stack. Corn goes on last. We're ready for the freeze dryer. I'm going straight into the freeze dryer, no pre-freeze. While you're cutting up all of these vegetables, make sure that you are saving all of your vegetable scraps and your onion peels. If you wanna know why, then check out our video on freeze drying your own vegetable broth and making your own freeze-dried onion powder. This recipe will be in the freezedryingcookbook.com. We have over 350 recipes at this point. We are working on our 3rd volume of the cookbook, so make sure you check those out. There is a hard copy version, also an online version. The online version can be found at freezedryingcookbook.com. The hard copies can be found at freezedryingsupplies.com, as well as all of the other accessories you've seen in this video. And if you like this video, you want to see some freeze drying content as well as some other content, make sure you do all the things you normally do. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, all that good stuff. And if you have questions on freeze drying in general, you can follow our socials. We have a Facebook and MeWe group. Those are Retired at 40's Freeze Drying Group. We can also be found on Instagram and X at OG Freeze Dryer. Corn chowder coming at ya. And 34 hours later, we have all of our ingredients. We have our freeze-dried corn, freeze-dried cubed potatoes and celery, freeze-dried carrots, fresh freeze-dried rosemary, and some diced onions. All we have left to do is package this, and then we're going to make our stew out of our fresh freeze-dried ingredients. Thanks to our blanching the potatoes, there's no black ugly spots in them. Now that we have all of our loose ingredients freeze dried, all we need to do is put these all together, put them in a pot. We're gonna add some water and we're gonna make a corn chowder. The 1.5 pounds of freeze dried potatoes ended up being 4 cups of freeze dried potatoes. So we're gonna add those first, followed by 2 cups of freeze dried onion. And then 1.5 cups of our carrots. 2.5 cups of freeze dried corn kernels. 1 cup of freeze-dried celery. Then take your fresh rosemary. I like to take just kind of a big pinch and crumple that up as you're putting it into the chowder. Follow that up with a tablespoon of Italian seasoning. And then last ingredient, we need 1.5 teaspoons of granulated garlic. If you're using freeze-dried garlic, you might want to dial that back a bit because homemade freeze-dried garlic powder is pretty potent stuff. The last thing we need to add is water, and I'm gonna start off with about 8 cups of water. After this comes up to a boil, we're gonna let this simmer for about 15 or 20 minutes. We wanna make sure all of those vegetables are fully rehydrated. Your water contents of your vegetables will vary greatly, so anticipate adding more water if needed. After you have tasted a few bites of this and made sure that everything is cooked all the way through, you have a choice to make. You can keep it chunky the way it is right now, and if that is the case, you are done. I like to actually use an immersion blender or a blender and blend this to more of a creamy consistency. And if you do that, you can really control the texture. You can leave some bigger chunks in if you want, or you can blend it all the way creamy smooth if you want to. This is what I visualize corn chowder as. If you leave it in the chunk form, it will be more like a stew. Blended, we ended up with about 6 cups. If you left it in the stew version, you'd probably have another extra cup or 2. Nothing left to do but to taste this. This is the best part of my job, and I purposely made this just a little bit bland on purpose. That way you can make it your own recipe by adding extra pepper or salt or garlic or however you like your corn chowder. And everything tastes just the way it should. No one will be able to tell that this is freeze-dried, and what I love about this, you could also reverse engineer this recipe. You could make the finished product, you could freeze dry it and calculate how much water was taken out so you knew how much to put back in and have a very quick put together corn chowder. And there you have it, a very inexpensive pantry recipe that you can use with all of your pantry items, your freeze-dried ingredients, and something that's in season, which is corn. I hope you give this a try and make this recipe your own. In the meantime, remember to live life simple, and we'll catch you next week.